You are listening to the Why I Love Disney podcast. In this episode, we talk about the continued impact of the coronavirus and what we're watching on Disney Plus during this national quarantine. You ready? Let's go. The idea to stand in line for an hour to ride a go-kart that went 7 miles an hour was not awesome. Not a fun thing.
For a lot of kids, it's their first time driving.
That's true. That's true. But you could go to Malibu Grand Prix, or you could go to the local go-kart track and have a much more exciting experience, much less safe experience.
Hey, when it first opened, it did not have the guardrails.
Oh,
so you see lots of crazy things in the old footage where kids wreck and run over people.
See, now I think maybe go back to that. That would be. Welcome to another episode of the Why I Love Disney podcast. I'm Dustin.
I'm David.
And I'm Ramin.
And we are here more than 6 feet away from each other, practicing safe social distancing here as the world gets crazier and crazier. Coming to you today. David, how's everybody doing in your world?
We're doing all right.
Families, everybody healthy?
Everybody's healthy.
Man, that's good. That's good these days. Ramin, how about you?
Yeah, everybody's doing pretty well. Stir crazy, but doing well.
I hear that. Same at my house.
Yeah.
I think, the kids are home. And there's pros and cons to all of these things. Like you get to spend more time, but I think I've learned. Let me tell you what you think. I had this may be a hot take, but public education. All right, it exists. We think it exists to educate our children, and it does to some degree.
It was a daycare service,
but that's what I'm getting at. Like you could completely put the education modules online. We've now seen that. But what you can't do is replicate the daycare service that it provides. It's a social service is what it is. Because it really isn't about, is it about educating kids? I mean, it's kind of the byproduct of what it actually is giving kids a place to go so mom and dad can work. I mean, have you ever thought about
I'm sure there's a lot of debate. Like public schools or even private schools, I'm sure offer a lot. I imagine depending on who you ask, they're going to say, how much value. But the interaction with other kids and kind of playing and I'm sure there's a lot to be gained from that.
I've just never thought about it like this before. Like all our learning modules are online, so you could see why. Like you would say, well, why do we need teachers if you can just put it all online? And I'm not a fan of like all online instruction anyway. I really would prefer there to be someone explaining to ask questions
too.
And not even to type a question to. I want face-to-face interaction. That may just be me and the way I was raised. But I've really got these thoughts of like, okay, public education is important for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is providing daycare so our economy can grow stronger. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
I definitely think that's a benefit of it for sure.
And I think there's a lot of things I think we're coming face to face. Not just that we're learning things. I think the public is seeing, they're asking good questions about why have we always done this way, and why only now are we thinking about these things? And I don't want to get. I mean, it could go everything from like, where did $2 trillion just come from? Have you ever thought about that? Like
I have thought about that.
Yeah, me too.
Like everybody, I was watching one thread and they're like, well, who are we borrowing this money from? No one. We're not borrowing this money from anybody. We are printing this out of thin air. And so then the next question that comes up is, if they can just print money out of thin air, then why in the world are any of us paying our taxes? Am I way off base on this? Like,
well, printing money, isn't that a contributing factor in inflation and things like that?
In a Keynesian kind of world, yes, but
I think we print money all the time,
and we've seen deflation. Actually, we've very small inflation over the last 20 years. And you would think with the amount of the way GDP has grown, the amount of debt we're in, the amount of money that's just printed like this, that there would be hyperinflation, right? And there hasn't been. So what is that telling us? We're all going to pay our taxes. We're all going to do the right thing. But I've never thought about these things before. Like there are just things that we take for granted that we have always sort of, well, this is just the way things are, and never question them. And now that we're in this kind of this pandemic that we've never experienced before, you start to see things from a slightly different perspective. As they just make these broad announcements like, 2 weeks ago they're saying you don't need any masks. You don't need masks. They won't help you or they'll make it worse. And now the same people are saying, well, yeah, masks are probably a good idea, and at some point you're probably going to need one. Now, I understand, like, if they would have said, "Listen, masks are good, but we don't have enough for the doctors, so
Yeah.
please, you know, don't yet, just buy up all the masks." But don't lie to us.
I
You
know
know what I'm saying?
I saw a lot of things that said like the masks were going to be ineffective, which is not
That's
the
not
case.
true.
Yeah, not true. And so yeah, I think the biggest concern was taking them away from healthcare providers who desperately need them, and there's a shortage, and so
Why
like
not just tell us that
I know,
though?
I don't know. That's
It seems to hurt credibility, and I think if everybody had a mask, we may could go back to Disney World sooner. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because in the countries where they do, like Japan, for instance, Japan has and South Korea have not had nearly the impact or the death
Right.
rate or the infection rate that other countries have, from Italy to China to the United States to Spain to Germany. And one of the reasons people I know nobody knows, right? Who know? I'm not an
it's all
expert,
speculation, right?
all speculation. But one thing they are doing in those countries are everybody's got a mask all the
Mhm.
time, and it makes you think. I don't know if that's the difference or not. And some people think, well, those countries are more conditioned to these sorts of things because the breakouts they've had in the past have impacted them more, so they're more ready for this sort of thing. But I'm kind of thinking. I've already started. I got a mask out. I took it to the grocery store today. I've been out and about.
Yeah, I saw you with it.
I think that 10 days from now, we're moving toward, hey, everybody, get a mask, make your own if you have to. So
Hey, I've just got a question. Did where
yeah.
you went? Was the grocery store crowded today?
No, it wasn't
Okay.
crowded. Actually, the last two times I've been surprised how not. It's kind of been eerily not crowded.
Oh, good.
I mean, there's still like empty shelves, like no toilet paper, very little toilet paper, that kind of stuff. But it wasn't like wall to wall people. Matter of fact, um, maybe the last I had to make a Walmart run. Um,
That's
last week.
actually the last time I passed Walmart, it was so crowded.
It may be times, but when I went, I walked. I needed an adapter for a microphone, and I walked straight back to electronics and didn't see one person. Didn't interact with not an employee. Oh, there was one employee stocking a shelf that I walked past, and walked back to self checkout and checked myself out, and was not around anyone within 20 or 30 feet of me. Like, it was kind of eerie.
Yeah.
Like, even at Walmart, which is good. But I have heard people say that it's been nuts too at other
The
times.
last time I was in Walmart, and it could have been any other store, but I was amazed at how many people just seemed to be hanging out.
Just chilling.
I still think that's our biggest problem
Yeah.
is that people they're not really staying in like they should. And so I had to go when the last time I went to Walmart, it was something we really needed.
Yeah.
And so I went in, but I could tell there were a lot of people shopping for things that they didn't really need. I mean, they were just browsing.
Well, it's the only place open, so the only place
Yep.
to hang out right now.
Yep.
It's interesting too. You say that because like parks, at first, everybody would go out, take a walk, and you should do those things, but they've started closing parks now,
Right.
because they're so crowded. It's the only place to go, and it's been like where I'm at in Kentucky. It's been like 2 weeks straight of rain, and we've had three straight really nice sunny days, and you drive past some of these parks, and they're just like people everywhere. They're talking about taking rims down on basketball hoops, on public basketball hoops and things like that. Man, and it kind of, to your point, if people would just follow the rules and stay home and go out only when necessary, we'll get through this a lot quicker. We can get back to
It's so much better than getting sick. Just stay in.
Yeah.
Stay in.
Well, I mean, and it's starting to, the impact's growing. You find more and more people are contracting it. Today, new country 90s superstar Joe Diffie died of the coronavirus, and you're starting to hear more names that either contracted or are impacted by it different ways. But I mean, some people it's quick and it's vicious, and some people seem not to have any symptoms at all. In different capacities, and everybody's story seems to be a little different when you hear them talk about it.
Yeah, I find that wild, just how different it has, impact it has on different people. It can vary so widely. So from being asymptomatic to fatality like that, it's just crazy.
Sure.
That's insane.
Well, this brings us to the biggest news of Disney this week. Is like, I think it was in the last 24 hours they announced that they are closing the parks, or the parks are already closed, but that they had originally given us an April 1st date of reopen. How long have we been closed now? It seems like a day seems like a year now. Like a week seems like it was 4 months ago.
It was a much shorter time frame that they were definitely early on saying April maybe, but
But
now
it's been closed about 3 or 4 weeks now, right?
yes, I think so. Yes,
I think was it March that
March 16th.
16th? Okay, so
Yeah.
that's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And they said, April 1st was a target, but now they've come back and said indefinitely, we're closed. Indefinitely, we'll update you, right?
Well, and I think for a while, a lot of things were saying, let's try 2 weeks, then we'll try another 2 weeks. But I think the the reality is we don't know, and so it's just going to take a while to figure out, and maybe go ahead and tell everybody we just don't know. I do think you can book rooms from. You can make a reservation starting June 1st,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean anything either. They could change all those too.
Now I did see they've committed to paying employees through, was it
I think April 18th.
April 18th, which is about just under 3 weeks from now. Which is a fantastic move, by the way. I mean, take care of their employees. This is unprecedented times. That word "unprecedented" that everyone uses all the time. It's overused now, but it's because
That's true. It
it is
is.
unprecedented
Yeah.
times. And to take care of hourly employees and workers, I think is a fantastic move. But also something, unless the government gets involved in that, not something that's sustainable for a long, long time. They're already losing tons of money. I mean, how much cash is in the coffers, or how
Right.
much credit can you borrow to continue your payroll when you're completely shut down? That's it- it's just interesting. And so, but I applaud them, as long as they can. They're through April 18th, all of their employees are going to continue getting paid. And you asked me earlier, David, you said, do you think there's anything to the April 18th target date? And what do you guys think? You think that gives us a clue to how long they think this is going to last? Or do you think it's just sort of them not knowing and just saying, hey,
I just thought it was interesting that they said the parks are closed indefinitely at this point, and we're paying to this date. It didn't say indefinitely. It said till this date. So I just wondered if that was the cutoff date.
It's kind of hard to say. I don't really. I've been kind of trying to keep up with news and seeing some of these models. Um, some of people are saying, the next 2-3 weeks are going to be kind of our peak in cases. So, like, really expect the worst of it to come here within this next month. And if that's the case, hopefully we'll see a tapering and plateau and then an eventual decline. I don't know. It sounds like it could definitely last all the way to, August. The end of summer probably.
I mean, I've heard you don't want to, but you start to prepare yourself for that. Goodness,
Yeah.
to lose a summer season, for all of us, but all these businesses, man.
Well, I think another part of this is going to be how people respond and what they do after maybe some of this social distancing lifts a little bit. When it relaxes, are we going to have a relapse because people are, just going back to the way things used to be? And so I think it's going to depend on just how well we kind of relax our social distancing practices. And
Apparently, there's talk too that when they do reopen, that it will be staggered. They won't. It won't be all the shows. It will be things that keep people somewhat isolated. They'll only allow so many people in.
Hmm.
Some of the shows that are 200 or 300 people in a room together, they won't operate. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, when we start having the conversations about how things reopen and are re-implemented, you think about how that's going to take place from sports and everything. Will we start with sports with no spectators? I don't know. What will Disney be like if they only allow this many people in and you have to, it just. Do you think the world will ever completely be the same as it was 3 months ago?
I think we'll get back to a relative sense of normalcy.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I think we will have learned some things through this, and so I think we're going to be a little better off. But as far as like just going about your casual day, I think we're going to get back there eventually. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think too, like the April 18th paying the employees. I don't necessarily think that's my when I heard that, it wasn't necessarily like they think that that's the end, and maybe the 19th they could open, or that they were refusing. We're not paying past this date. I really think it's sort of like everybody else. It's sort of like we'll wait and see
Feeling it
and
out.
reevaluate.
I think so.
Because I think that's where everybody is with um, whether it's school systems or businesses or even churches. Like Easter Easter services. Not being able to meet is that's unprecedented once again territory. Kind of remarkable that what's going on. But again, stay safe out there. Stay well. Let us know if we can serve you in any way. That's the big Disney news. Was there anything else? I mean, once you go to the big Disney, it's like a little other stuff. You know what?
Hey, I saw that that Stitch Great Escape. It looks like the rumors that it was going to be a Wreck-It Ralph attraction coming soon.
Okay,
That's
Stitch Great Escape. Tell me.
It's an attraction, Walt
Where?
Disney World in
Okay.
Tomorrowland.
Okay.
Used to be Mission to Mars.
Okay, then it was
and then
Alien Encounter.
Alien Encounter.
I think far underrated attraction in my opinion. And then Stitch,
Yes.
and then Stitch freaked out all the little kids.
Right. Before the extraterrestrial was before that, right? Was that
Yeah,
the Alien Encounter?
Alien
Right,
Encounter,
right.
where the alien breaks out of the glass.
I don't
and
think
he
I
hacks
ever
a
saw
person and
that.
you get blood dripped on you. This is Disney, by the. This is. I thought it was.
That
honestly,
was a Michael Eisner
I thought it was
attraction.
I was at the age I was targeted for, and I had never seen anything like that. Like the lizard, he has this long tongue, and it's like this 4D thing where you're sitting there and his tongue gets in your hair, and then it's completely black, and you hear him running around and feel his breath on your neck, and then you see this guy up in the rafters, and he's got a flashlight checking things out, and the monster eats him. His flashlight falls down, and then you're squirted with liquid. Dude, it was an awesome. I love that as a kid, but I could see how parents bringing their kids in, not knowing what to expect. They're scarred
Yeah.
for life through this. So
I think they got a lot of that. Do they talk about it in the Imagineering project?
I don't know. I don't remember that at all. I wish they had.
I thought it was in. I definitely have read somewhere. I knew that was Eisner trying to get more teenage
So
related.
they changed that. They changed that from that to a Lilo and Stitch thing, which was much less. It was more playful. He still got free and the same effects, but it was more like didn't feel as ominous or like you're
Right.
about to die and you got to get out of here. But still, I remember I took my son on that. He was probably 5 or 6, and he kind of freaked out a little bit, even with a Stitch running around.
Right.
So now you're saying they're making that into something
It's
else.
going to be a Wreck-It Ralph
So-
attraction. Same. All I saw was same seating as we've had. It's still in the round kind of thing, like even back to Mission to Mars, but it's going to be themed to Wreck-It Ralph.
That's awesome.
It's been sitting a long time empty. I mean, it says seasonal, and then I guess it's a meet and greet to meet Stitch, but it's not had a real traction there for a while, so that'll be good to have
That's
something.
cool. They need to do something with that space. It's funny to me that seating has been there since Mission to Mars. It's been the same basic thing.
Yeah.
I wonder why. Like,
It'll be interesting to see though how it connects with Tomorrowland, where the video games, what they're going to do with that.
Yeah.
How that's going to play into the story.
it seems like a great place for a Wreck-It Ralph ride. Be Tomorrowland. Man, Tomorrowland is going to be a lot different in a couple years,
It is.
and I'm kind of excited about that. The Tron coaster. They still need to, I think, do something with the go-karts.
Yeah. A lot of
But,
people think that.
Um,
A lot of people would like to see it to be electric cars at least, something
Yeah.
that's more, modern.
environmentally friendly.
But when that
I would like to
attraction
test
was
drive a Tesla.
when that
Yeah, me
attraction
too.
first was introduced at Disneyland, expressways were modern.
Yeah.
So that was considered the roadway of tomorrow. That's why it was a Tomorrowland attraction. It's just normal now.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was in the early 90s and going to Disney a lot as a middle schooler, the idea to stand in line for an hour to ride a go-kart that went 7 miles an hour was not awesome. Not a fun thing.
For a lot of kids, it's their first time driving.
That's true. That's
so
true.
it's-
But you could go to Malibu Grand Prix, or you could go to the local go-kart track and have a
Right.
much more exciting experience, much less safe experience.
Hey,
we
when
should
it
say.
first when it first opened, it did not have the guardrails.
Oh,
So
dude,
you
now-
see lots of crazy things in the old footage where kids wreck and run over people.
See, now I think maybe go back to that. And it would be- That's awesome. But no, I'm excited about Tomorrowland. So that's pretty cool. A Wreck-It Ralph ride on the
Yeah.
Lilo and Stitch Alien Encounter Mission to Mars site.
hmm
Any other news we got? I guess we turn to Disney Plus news then. Did you guys see anything cool this week? Well, before we do that, I did see this incredible stat about there's an analysis that a company did that says Disney Plus US subscriptions finds that 50% of households with kids under 10. So 50% of households with kids under 10 have a Disney Plus subscription.
Wow.
That's insane to me. That's a lot of people. 42% with kids under 18. So if you have kids under 18, 42% of households have a Disney Plus subscription. Get this. 41% of 18 to 24-year-olds are subscribers. That seems like a lot. I mean, that's really fascinating. It tells
Wow.
you the power of the Disney brand and just that people feel like this content is valuable enough to pay for. 18 to 24, you're talking about college kids. And if you have a lot of, from Netflix, you have a lot of choices in your subscription. You have Spotify for music and Apple Music. And these subscriptions, I mean, they can add up quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And what this is telling us is that Disney Plus is hanging right in as far as a content value for a key demographic, that 18 to 24-year-olds, that they're spending their money, their
Right.
hard-earned money, or mom and dad's money, or whatever it is, on a Disney Plus subscription. I think that's pretty fascinating.
One of my daughters that's in college, when it first came out, that her group were all watching a lot of the shows from the 90s, a lot of the stuff from Disney Channel, and a lot of things that really hadn't been released before. You could see some episodes, but you couldn't watch complete series from the Disney Channel, a lot of those Disney Channel shows. So, yeah, that makes sense. That age group probably really watching a lot of the things they haven't been able to see before.
I think it speaks to just that huge library of content. You've got all the nostalgia buttons. Whatever you grew up watching, there it is.
Well, and that's a huge part of why people love Disney anyway. It's nostalgia. It's what you typically find that what you loved first is what you probably love best.
But then there's all the new stuff. Like you think about Marvel and Star Wars, and you think about Frozen 2. You think about all the new content that's there quickly and first. So you have all the stuff you grew up with when you were, a tween or a young teenager, middle schooler that you were watching on Disney Channel. And then, you have Avengers Endgame and Infinity War right there at your fingertips. I mean, then the Simpsons, and then you start talking about all the other franchises that kind of come through that. Man, that's a huge library, and it's really hard to compete with. I go through Netflix sometimes. I'm like, what am I going to watch on here? Whereas Disney Plus, I'm like, oh, there's a nice catalog built up, and sometimes you start something on Netflix, you're not sure. You're like, is this worth investing my time in? And I totally get the Disney Plus.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on Disney Plus that has like a high like rewatch value for me versus Netflix, which doesn't have so much of that. I think that's a big difference, at least for me personally.
Now they still have The Office on Netflix, but
Yeah.
it's not exclusive to Netflix. So as soon as that's off, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about Disney is all that's Disney content, stuff they own. It's never going anywhere. And I think Netflix's popularity, and that's why they try to go so far into the original content, because they know that's what'll hook people and keep people in. Because Friends, when it's gone, which is gone now, and then the Office when it's gone, or New Girl, or all these shows, which actually, when you start talking about the Fox catalog, New Girl, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you start going down that list, and Disney owns all that now too, if I'm not mistaken. When that stuff pulls off of, and then I think NBC Universal is starting their own streaming service also. So you can only imagine, like, the Office and Saturday Night Live and Parks and Rec and those sorts of this big. They're going. Everything's going to be compartmentalized. Where does that leave Netflix? What do you think? Just Netflix in the dust there, or
creating new original content?
But then again, I think that puts them behind, like way behind, because, and this is where Disney has such an advantage, is that just vast catalog.
Well, the timing of all this couldn't have been better. That they got this thing up and running at the end of last year. So when all this quarantine and people are stuck inside, what an incredible move to have this ready.
Absolutely. Speaking of, what did you guys were talking about how awesome Disney Plus is and these numbers? Did you guys watch anything on Disney Plus this week? Anything?
I did. I watched a lot.
All right.
Well, I was trying to keep up with your family, and I watched Tron, and I watched Apple Dumpling Gang, and I watched Parent Trap.
Awesome. We're going to do quarantine episodes of all of this, single out these episodes and talk about them. We got lots of thoughts about these. Yeah.
Right. And then my wife and I have been watching S.H.I.E.L.D., which is an ABC Disney show. And so we're in like into season 2. And so we watched quite a bit of that. And then my son decided he was going to watch all the Marvel movies again. So I've watched several of. I watched Iron Man and Thor and the Avengers are the ones that I got to watch with him.
You've been on a lot this week. Then.
It,
Yeah,
a
that's what I
lot,
was gonna say.
but I haven't done. I haven't done a lot of what I planned to watch, but I've watched a lot
It
with my
always works out
family.
like that too. Your kids want to watch something else. Like, all right, we'll go with that.
Well, I didn't see a Marvel marathon coming in the middle, but it's good.
Always time for a Marvel marathon. Man, those movies are so.
I really like Avengers.
The original Avengers.
Yeah, that's always been one of my favorites. So it was good watching that again. I hadn't seen
agree
it in a
with
while.
When we get sidetracked on talking about the Avengers, but what struck me how when it first came out, I was skeptical.
Hmm.
I really was because I loved all the standalone movies they were making, but the Avengers, they're going to try to put all these characters in one movie. This is going to be in your frame of reference were things like the Fantastic Four, where it just never quite worked, and so when it came out and it was so good,
Right.
that scene where Hulk smashes Loki and
That's a good one.
One of the-
iconic.
Yes, breakout moments.
Yeah,
Laughter.
My kids were way too young to see that and went home and tried to do that to each other, but just fantastic. That's a fantastic movie.
It
But
is.
Iron
I
Man and
think one of
Thor
my
too.
favorite things about it too is there's the tension at the beginning, all the personalities kind of colliding, but they come together. And some of the movies they end angry.
Yeah.
And so I liked that this is like they work through that and they end up, going to a restaurant together at the end of the whole thing. It just has a good reminder like we can pull through anything.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you spent about 27 hours on Disney Plus this week.
I did. We did it like every night. I
What
think
else
we
are you
watched
gonna do?
something.
What else are you
That's
gonna
right.
do? Ramin, did you watch anything on Disney Plus?
I watched a couple things. I've watched the original Iron Man movie again, and then I watched both Tron movies. The original Tron, first time I've ever seen it, the 1982 one. And then I watched Legacy as well right after that to kind of just see what they were like next to
Awesome.
each other. So
Tron podcast coming up next. So that's gonna be fun to talk about. Well, you spent some time on there too, then.
yeah, a
Awesome.
little bit of time.
We'll,
Yeah.
we'll get into the podcast a little bit. What did you think about Tron? Did you like it?
The original one?
Yeah.
I did like it,
All right.
actually. It was, like I was saying this earlier, it was kind of fun, like being exposed to the new one and then seeing this kind of like throwback from the 80s and just the vibe and the graphics. It was almost kind of comical, but I really enjoyed it. It's pretty
cool.
fun.
Well, we're going to talk about that more in a future podcast. I'm trying to sit here thinking in the last week since our last podcast what I've watched on Disney Plus, and I know I've had it on.
Have you watched Onward yet?
Oh yeah, well, I saw that. in the
That's the
theater.
next one on my list. I really want to see Onward.
yeah,
Comes
we
out
actually did a
April
po-
3rd
April 3rd?
on Disney
April
Plus.
3rd. Yeah, coming up quick. We actually did a podcast on that, Ramin.
You
should Go
did?
back and listen to that.
Oh,
episode. Yeah.
Okay.
We talked a lot about it. No, we'll talk about it again because I'd love to see it a second time.
Me too.
And I wasn't expecting to see it so
Yeah.
soon. Yeah, after we saw it, we were talking about it because it came out the weekend that everything started to close.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, the first weekend. That's how we'll always remember.
I went
No.
March 5th.
Mark, you went after.
I went the night
Okay.
before the official opening.
Yeah, that's right. So the 6th is that
I think it opened the 6th. Yes.
okay?
You went on that
Saturday,
weekend, and
yeah.
I went on Friday. I went on Thursday night.
Yeah, but we should talk about that again too once we all see that. I loved Onward. I'm curious to see what you thought about it. But yeah, I had my kids watching a few things. They've been still binging The Simpsons, and I'm not sure that's a great idea to have your kids, watching The Simpsons. I could tell you a really funny story, but it would make me sound like a really bad parent if I did. I'll tell you anyway, and we'll edit it out if we decide. So there's this episode, I think about season 7, where they're in Australia and Bart gets in trouble. It's funny how the Simpsons kind of parody what's happening in culture at the time. And now you've got 30 years of the Simpsons. I mean, this thing started in the late 80s. So you remember as you watch it now as an adult. My kids don't have this reference, but I stop myself and I'll explain to them what was going on in the world at the time. Like, the parodies with White Broncos and O.J. Simpson, those sorts of things. And so this happened to reference the kid, I forget his name, who got caned in Singapore. Remember that? Do you remember that kid who I don't know what he did, but
I remember that
his
happening.
punishment was big news everywhere that they were going to cane this kid, which means he was going to get spanked, basically.
With a cane.
With a cane.
That's like a whip.
And everybody was like, "How can you? That's inhuman." What all this? But Singapore, which is a very modern they're Eastern country, but a very modern country. Like they have no crime there. And this American kid, was going to get caned. There was kind of all this backstory. So there's a Simpsons episode where I guess they're in Australia and Bart has done something. And I don't remember exactly what, but at the end he gets caught and he gets in trouble. And his punishment is he's going to get a kick in the butt from the Prime Minister of Australia. This is his punishment. They're going to kick him in the rear end, right?
Right.
And so at the very end, he's bends over to get his punishment, right? So Bart's bending over, and the Prime Minister of Australia is there and winds up, and he actually says, and this is for the Commonwealth of Australia, for the people of Australia. And he goes and rears back, and Bart says, and this is for the United States of America. And he pulls his pants down and moons the guy, and on his butt is written, "Don't tread on me." And he starts humming the national anthem while he shakes his bare butt at the Prime Minister of Australia. Classic Simpsons scene.
Classic,
yeah, it's incredible. So my oldest son and I, we're just laughing our heads off at this, right? But what I don't realize is my 4-year-old, later on, my oldest son thinks it's so funny that he wants to show everyone this scene and back it up. So I'm not in the room. So he shows my 4-year-old's in the room and he sees this too. Next thing I know, I walk in. My 4-year-old is mooning his brothers, saying, "This is for the United States of America," and just shaking his bare butt at his brothers. I'm like, oh my goodness. We got to cut down on the Simpsons watching.
This is my wife did let my kids watch the Simpsons. This is why.
That is why. At least it happened at home, and we're quarantined now. I could only imagine getting the call from the teacher at school about your son just patriotically mooned the entire class and said, "This is for the United States of America." So
I was waiting for you to say he had something written on there.
No, they didn't get that far. Although had I not walked in when I had, they
Probably
may have
would
got
have.
that to their.
My wife was always afraid it would make our kids very sarcastic.
Yeah, my wife and I have had conversations. Now, if what's funny is every time your kid gives you any back talk or sass, the immediate thing is, it's the Simpsons. Got to be the Simpsons watching. I told you, if you can't let them watch the Simpsons, they'll talk back. But they were talking back way before the Simpsons, and I really try to only let my oldest son watch it.
Right.
He's in middle school, and I don't know. Maybe I may change my mind here pretty soon. There are some topics that are discussed that are a little uncomfortable. It doesn't hold back. I mean, it's a primetime network television cartoon. It's
Right.
not
I would love to watch it all to see the cultural references, and that would be really fun to watch.
Some of it's awkward. Every now and then you get an episode, it's like, but it's so funny and it's so well written, and you forget until you see it again. But I've talked way too much about The Simpsons now, so I'll probably edit all that out. But I know we watched The Simpsons this week. I can't think of anything.
We'll talk about some more of these things that we've been watching in future episodes then.
Absolutely. And I can't wait for those. And until then, we want to send out our best wishes to all of you. Hope you're staying safe. Hope you're staying well. Please, that's what we love about Disney. Why do you love Disney? And let us know. You can reach us on our website at whyilovedisney.com or through Twitter at whyilovedisney1. There on Twitter. Please reach out to us. Let us know what you're watching during this time. We'd love to discuss that. Let us know if you think we have a terrible take on some of your favorite shows or whatever. We'd love to hear from you. But until next time, thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you real soon.